Good evening. How everyone doing today? God is good and God is good all the time. We still doing Bible study, chapter after chapter. This story here is Moses' sister, Miriam and Aaron, opposed Moses. So they're starting to be jealous of Moses. Talking about criticizing how he leading the Israelite. So the story gonna come from Numbers chapter 12, verse 1 through 16. So Miriam and Aaron is Moses' brother and sister. So they don't like how Moses is leading the Israelite. They say, all the people can always point out things that what you're not doing right, and they feel they can do it better. Because you see, Miriam is Moses' sister, and she already is a prophet. Then you got Aaron, he is a high priest. So you got two people already have unique positions, unique position, high position, But sometimes, things sprawl over and they'll still be jealous of how someone doing their position. So the Israelites, so they began to talk against Moses, and because of his Kusan wife, when he married, so still them gonna go to Moses with the real issue, what they're feeling right now. They're gonna start criticizing his wife because they have pride, because they know if they go to Moses about how he doing his position, they know it's gonna come out as you being jealous. So because of his Kusai wife, whom he married, sound like that is being jealous of Moses. The law spoke only, through Moses. So they complain about, how could, God just only speak to Moses? But she's a prophet. God can speak to her too, in her dream, in her vision. She's a prophet. And God also speaks to Aaron. He's a high priest. So these two unique positions is under God. So they have no needs to be jealous of Moses, saying God only speaks to Moses. That's not true. God speaks to the sister. She's a prophet, and also to Aaron. When he was trying to know him, God could still, speak to Aaron too. He the high priest. So why they talking? Now why they talking? God hear. God can hear you no matter you're mumbling, no matter you're talking among yourself. You see, that's the same thing the last package I put out, how the Israelites talking among himself. And when Moses have a problem, Moses take it straight to God. So God said, so God jumped in. God said Moses is a humble man. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, so God told all throughout, I need y'all to come on to the tent. Let's have a meeting. Come on to the tent. And then the Lord came down. The Lord came down in a pillar of cloud. Because he had to come down to take care of this matter here. Because he hearing how the brother and sister is just criticizing Moses, the way how he doing his position, how he is leading the Israelite. So he stood at the entrance to the tent, and he summoned Aaron and Miriam. That's the two people he really had to talk to. I might not be pronouncing her name right. That's Moses' sister. So when the two of them stepped forward, God said, when them two stepped forward, he summoned this those two. God said, listen. I need y'all to listen. Listen to the words I'm about to say. So when there is a prophet among you, the Lord will reveal myself to them in a vision, and I speak to them in dreams. So God telling them what you are saying about Moses is not true. Of his servant, that he is a faithful, in all his house. So with him, I speak face to face. Now, see, with Moses, God said I speak to him face to face. Multiple times Moses saw him at the burning bush, saw him on top of that mountain. Sit down with him at one time and eat. God, every time he deal with Moses, he deal with Moses face to face. Clearly, and not in riddles. See, God don't talk in riddles. And just like most of us, we got to try to hear God's voice. Okay, if that's God's voice, we got to hear His voice. But then with Moses, God don't talk in rivers. God don't talk low. God see Moses face to face, and He speaks to him clearly. So God had asked them. God asked them, why were you not afraid? When you spoke against Moses. So God asked them, why you were not afraid? But y'all is speaking against Moses. And they probably was not afraid because they figured like, that's my brother. But God telling them, you need to be afraid, when you talk to my prophet Moses. Because God gave him Moses that position, and Moses in charge of the Israelites and them also that's following along with Moses. And that's the thing. They feel like that's my baby brother. I don't want him to be over us and telling us what to do. Moses is over all of them. So Moses didn't have a Jewish wife because he lived half his life in Egypt. And remember God told him do not marry an Egyptian. So for 40 years, in his life he was a slave. He was living on a Pharaoh. So he was in the desert. So remember he had fled from Pharaoh when he killed one of the Egyptians, and he landed in the desert, and that's what he made his father-in-law at, and he married the man's daughter. So that's how he ended up marrying the woman that's in that desert. So his first wife, who was a Mennonite, there was no explanation given for why, his sister object his wife. The main thing is, the main issue was she had pride, and she couldn't confront Moses on the real issue, how she felt, because it would have came off as she jealous. So in the meantime, she just started criticizing his wife. The wife don't have anything to do with anything. You're going in Moses' position, and you feel like you can do it better than Moses. But the sister and Aaron, they came to Moses with a complaint. The high priest. So you got the high priest, and you got the sister is a prophet. So you got two most powerful groups sitting, standing next to Moses. So you don't have no reason to be jealous of Moses. You got you're a prophet, and then you got a high priest. So that's two powerful people standing next to Moses, and Moses also is a powerful person. So the real issue was the growing of jealousy. But they didn't want to come to Moses about that. They start complaining, they start criticizing his wife, which it had nothing to do with anything, because they didn't want, they had pride and did not tell Moses the real reason what the problem was. So Moses, jealousy of Moses' position. That was the whole thing it's about. And there was influence, they seeing how Moses worked, seeing how the closeness that he had with God. Every time something go on, Moses, God was communicating with Moses. So they tried to find fault. They tried to find fault in Moses, right? So like, well, he married a Cusic woman. So just start finding any old thing, to try to find a complaint to go to Moses about. But the real complaint was they wanted his position. So in most, but instead they criticized his wife. Instead of telling Moses the real reason, the way they feel, they start criticizing his wife. So rather than face the problem, and deal with it, to infinite and pride that they had, so now the sister and Aaron criticized Moses, and now the anger of the law burned against them, and he left them. So God hear the sister and Aaron, just coming against, they're just talking among themselves, going against Moses, criticizing the way how he running and leading the Israelites, but at the same time they're criticizing his wife, because they were trying to find fault in Moses, to have a complaint against him. They didn't have no faults against him, so they just start criticizing his wife. They want to have something to say he's not doing his job right. So when the cloud, had lifted above, the tent, the sister's skin was leopard. it became as white as snow. Because see, they're talking about Moses. And God is finding Moses. God appointed Moses to do this position. You know, so God appointed somebody to do a position, and he just hearing, they're just blasting him, they're just talking about him, criticizing the way he's doing. And so God didn't like that. So when God had finished talking to them, that still was in their feeling. God can read your heart, your soul, and everything else. So when God finished talking to them, he know their heart still wasn't right. So when they walked away, God put that leopard disease on her. Put that skin on her. Put that skin was leopard because her arm had started turning as white as snow. Because after God finished talking with them, you can't lie to God. God can search your soul and your heart, and he'll know if you telling the truth or you agree with it and everything, because he still can read your mind and your heart and your soul. So after he finished talking with them and they walked away, they still was in their feelings. They still was jealous of Moses, and that's when God put that leopard disease on her. So Aaron turned towards her and saw that she had a defined skin disease, and he said to Moses, see, they talk about Moses, but every time a crisis comes, who they call? So they called Moses. They called Moses and told Moses, please, they played to Moses, please, my Lord, I ask you, not to hold against us the sin. So Aaron realized, they sin. He said, I know we sin. We had sinned so foolish, commit. So he agreed, that the sin and we have so foolish commit. So they admit that their sin, they was foolish. He telling Moses don't hold a grudge against us. But Moses wasn't the one that put that on her. So now Aaron is pleading to God. He done talked to Moses. Now he pleading to God. Do not let her be like a stillborn infant that's coming from its mother womb. With her flesh have eaten away. I don't know how that disease looked on her, but Aaron said her flesh is half eaten away. Because when God was talking to her, talking to both of them, especially her, she must have was saying and mumbling and stuff, saying something in her mind and realized God can still read your mind. So she walked away, still feeling the same way when she was there, standing in front of God. So Aaron asked that the sin that he and his sister committed, not to be whole against them. Aaron did say that sin was foolish, so he admitted. He said it was foolish. So Moses had cried out. They're talking about Moses. But Moses is the only one that can talk to God and calm God down and make God see things in a whole different way. So you need Moses. Stop talking about Moses, and then you got Aaron, and you had the sister there, and when Moses was old ram in the last package I put out, they could have been helping Moses. She's a prophet. She could have been helping Moses, and you would have got some glory. So Moses cried out to the Lord, please God, heal my sister. So he's still looking out for his sister, his siblings. He's still looking out for them, even though they're coming against him. He's still looking out for them. He still turned around to God and he prayed. He said, God, please heal my sister. Take this away from my sister. So she will be in disgrace. So God heal Moses. I hear you, Moses. Moses can only one that can talk to God, calm God down, and get him to release a whole lot of stuff. God said, I hear you. I would do it, but in the meantime, she needs to be in disgrace. She needs to be in disgrace for at least 7 days. 7 days from disobeying me, did not want to listen to what I had to say, and coming against you. I will do what you say. But in the meantime, she needs to be in disgrace and be in disgrace for 7 days. Confine her outside, to camp. Because, once you have all that on you, you consider unclean. She had to be outside the camp. She can't even be inside the tent. She can't be inside. She had to be far away from people. For 7 days, she had to continue on being outside and being in disgrace. And people on the past by looking at, from you coming against Moses, God, man, prophet, that he communicated with face to face. So God told her she's going to be in disgrace for 7 days. Confine her outside of the camp, for 7 days. After that, God said after that, then her skin will be brought back together. So after that, some people left her zone and encamped in the desert of Paran. So Berlin over, the sister and Aaron, they saw a way that God was using Moses. They think God was using Moses. God was making Moses history, and God was getting glory. So you're not going to say God using his prophet. When God have a plan for someone, you always going to make history, and God going to always have glory. So they say that they found a way that God was using Moses, and they were jealous. So if you feel like God uses someone, why would you get jealous? So they wanted to be what he was, and that was the whole thing. They wanted to be what he was, and who, wouldn't. Moses had a big test, he had a big purpose on his life, and Moses, he got overwhelmed multiple times, but he had a big purpose on his life that the sister and the brother were jealous, They wanted to be what he was, and who wouldn't, God actually talked to Moses. God didn't talk to Moses in riddles. He didn't talk low like, low and stuff, and you got to figure out what he said. No, he talked clearly to Moses, So he had a unique role. Moses had a unique role, and history. God was making history for Moses. Something that no one else had done. He had the biggest purpose that God had given him. Abraham didn't even do the test. Abraham was supposed to do this, but he done got so old. So God had to pass this on to Moses. He had to pass this on to Moses. So Moses is the only one have this big text that God had put this on. No one had done what Moses done. So Moses have a unique role in history. That no one else had ever played. But the sister Miriam, and Aaron also have a unique role, in history. So a role that Moses cannot fill. So everybody have a unique role. See, God know what you can do and what you can't do. It's just like Moses fit to do what he's doing. Miriam is fit to be a prophet. Aaron was fit to be good. You look at all the Israelites they had. But God had picked Aaron to be the priest. God picked people to do certain things because each role you play, you is set for that position. All three of them had unique roles. So Moses couldn't fill their role. They couldn't fill Moses' role. Because God knows what role each one of us can do. So fill the roles that they alone couldn't fill. They could not fill Moses' role. Even though Moses got overwhelmed, it was understandable because he, he had what, 2 million Israelites. But still in all, God said they could not fill Moses' role, just like Moses could not fill their role. God have a unique role for every last one of us. We have to fulfill our own gift. So to roles that alone that can fill. So God had used them in wonderful ways. In wonderful ways. They all three of them have unique roles. So and Aaron, he is the priest over all. Just like I was just saying, out of all the Israelites, God picked Aaron and his sons to be the priest, and picked Aaron to be the high priest over over all the priests. You know, so God picked people. You know, people don't pick God. God picked people to do certain roles. You know, all of us have gifts. You know, sometimes God pick shows us with gifts, or sometimes we have to tap into our own gift. You know, so their jealousy has started to burn. You know, and they allow their negativity feeling to afraid their positive position. You know, so God had made a place for Moses in the kingdom. You know, so Moses is doing history, and at the same time, you know, God had made a place in the kingdom for Moses. You know, only him can feel. You know, when God write a purpose out for someone, it's just for that person. No matter how someone think they can fulfill your shoes, God have that purpose made just for that person. You know, so the sister and Aaron, you know, was comparing their work together. And that's another thing. God don't want us comparing our work together. You know, the sister got a gift, and Aaron have a gift. But they start comparing their gifts together, and that's when they start coming against Moses, talking about what he doing. You know, for each person, you know, should carry their own load. You know, and stop trying to compare your gift to someone else. You know, and pursue your own gift. Every one of us, God give us gift. You know, just like the sister and Aaron coming against Moses, they both have a gift. You know, one is a prophet and one is a priest. Meaning they still have connection with God. When you is a prophet, you is a priest, you under God. So you still have some kind of connection with God. You know? So when we allow, you know, so when is God work? When we doing the work for God, it's very valuable. It's very valuable. You know? What Moses is doing, it's very valuable. That it's making history. You know, and then you got the sister and Aaron. They also made history. You know, but Moses' position is more higher than his. You know, that no one had played and that no one can fulfill his shoes. You know, so when we allow jealousy to boil over, you know, and then you come against one another, you come against a God prophet. You know, why? You know, just like God asked, why you not scared? That's when God put that thing, that leper on her. You know, because God told her, you know, you talking against Moses, my prophet, why you not scared? She could not answer that question. So as soon as she walked away, God had placed that leopard skin on her. You know, because that's family. And it's the first time we're hearing of the sister right now. You know, no, it's the second time because, you know, Moses was a baby. She was on the sideline watching, seeing what the lady was going to do to her brother. You know, so this is a story of the sister and the brother. Stop coming against Moses. Stop being jealous of Moses, of the gift that he had. And all it had burned down that they wanted the position that he had. You know, just so saying, how come God just only communicating with him? You know, but you're a prophet. God communicate with you. You're a priest. God communicate with you. When you're a prophet, you is under God. I mean, you have connection with God if you tap into it. You know, so they was kind of jealous that the closeness that Moses had with God. You know, and that the high position that Moses had. You know, he got 2 million Israelites that he's leading to their promised land. You know, he is a high. You know, he's the high prophet that's over all of them, including the sister and Aaron. You know, and I guess they feel a type of way because Moses is the youngest. You know, so God give all us gift. You know, God have all of us. We all unique to God. You know, just like he said, the sister is unique with a position. She's a prophet. He said Aaron is unique. He said Moses is unique, but Moses have a higher position, and he is more closer to God. You know, you got some of us, you know, closer to God. And you got some of us still communicate with God, but not in a way that Moses do. You know, Moses always see God face to face. And God do not talk in riddles. God do not talk in puzzles. God talk clearly to Moses. And you know, and so that's they have a problem with that. Instead of them facing on their problem, they start criticizing Moses' wife, which don't have anything to do with the situation, the way how they feel. You know, and God could not change it. God had chose Moses, you know, and they just had to accept it. You know, they had to get out their feelings. You know, you either continue on this ride, on this journey, or you go back home. And go back home is under Pharaoh in Egypt in a slave, because they always over there in Egypt. You know, so you have a problem because God wasn't gonna change his mind. You know, they thought God was gonna change their mind when they had that meeting. You know, God did not change his mind. You know, God chose Moses. You either accept it or you go back to being a slave at Egypt. You know, because they all have unique position. You know, so no need to come against Moses the way. And my thing is, you know, the sister is a prophet. You know, when Moses kept on giving over around, you know, the sister could have jumped in and helped. But they feel like they don't have the position. They feel like they did not want to help Moses. You know, Moses was on his own, you know, and had to figure it out. You know. So a lot of time, you know, when you feel like you don't like what you're doing, you got to realize somebody wants to be what you're doing. You know, so that's all the story I have for you on today. To have the sister and the brother, you know, to start feeling, you know, jealous of Moses' position. You know, to feel like they want to be in his shoes. He had a closer connection with God. You know, so I see y'all on the next video, and the weather is beautiful outside. You know, so y'all have a blessed day, and I see y'all in the next video.